I know it can be really easy to feel disheartened, disillusioned, apathetic about the current state of the movie industry. They've given us plenty of reasons to feel that way. I get it, believe me. Where I used to feel excited about going to movies, now a lot of the time I walk into the theater just crossing my fingers that I don't end up feeling like I wasted my money. I mean, with streaming becoming a more and more viable option these days, it's hard not to feel like the magic of movies is kind of getting lost. And it's a pretty bitter pill to swallow, but Hollywood did that to themselves. The occasional exception to the rule aside, with the overproliferation of crap content out there, I just don't trust movies to be good anymore. But if there's one thing you can count on, one thing you can always trust when you go to the theater, buy your ticket, get your popcorn, and sit down for some good old-fashioned escapism, it's that Tom Cruise will absolutely damn near kill himself to make sure you get your money's worth. And for that, I doth my cap. I'm not actually wearing a cap, but if I had one, I would doff it. The Final Reckoning is the supposed final chapter of the Mission Impossible series, though as long as these things are making money and Tom Cruise hasn't crippled himself yet, I'm sure they'll keep making more. And it does play like the big finale to the franchise. Not a small feat when we're 8 films deep into this thing. And if this is the last Mission Impossible movie, at least before the inevitable reboot, then you know they were gonna throw everything, including the kitchen sink, into it. Now, I won't say that Final Reckoning is the best film in the series. It's not. It has some hiccups. I'll talk about those in a minute. But what the movie gets right? Damn. I continue to be amazed at how the Mission Impossible films are able to keep topping themselves in terms of spectacle. Writer-director Chris McQuarrie, I think, is one of the best in the business when it comes to staging dynamic action scenes. These things have just gotten more and more jaw-dropping as time goes on, and in Final Reckoning, they did it again. The 2 major action set pieces the film is built around, it's some of the most thrilling stuff in any action movie in years. McQuarrie is such a master of crafting rising tension that keeps you on the edge of your seat as it builds and builds, and every time you think they can't possibly crank it up anymore, there's a new twist where something else happens until the whole thing has gotten so bonkers you almost can't believe it. In fact, the movie is so good at this that it nearly starts to feel like overkill, like they've ratcheted things up to such an insane level that there's a danger of it becoming cartoonish. But McQuarrie is so smart about the way he writes and shoots this stuff and has so much attention to detail that even though Ethan Hunt is surviving things that by all rights no human being should ever be able to survive, you're always very cognizant of the danger he's in and that he's just barely getting through it by the skin of his fucking teeth. And even though they come this close to the whole thing turning into a giant circus, somehow it just works and you wind up with the most exhilarating balls in your throat action filmmaking you're gonna see outside of a James Cameron movie. And it really helps that Tom Cruise is downright maniacally committed to this stuff. I know before I even sit down that Cruise really strapped himself to the side of a biplane and was hanging off that thing thousands of feet in the air just so they could get the most exciting shot possible. And knowing he did all that shit himself and they didn't recreate it with CG or whatever, it just hits you differently. And it's kind of astonishing that Cruise is still doing this. I mean, the guy is not a spring chicken anymore. He doesn't look it, but he's getting up there. He's in his 60s now, but he's so willing to go for it and just throws himself into these sequences to sell the crap out of them. There is never a moment in this film where Tom Cruise is not working at less than 110%. Action junkies will be very happy. And there isn't even as much action in the movie as you might think, but when the switch flips and the action does kick in, incredible stuff. But there are a few bases to cover before they get to the action. Final Reckoning is playing like it's the last one, so they're jumping through a lot of hoops to tie the whole series together and make this feel like the culmination of one giant 8-film story. The movie bends over backwards to connect the dots from all the other movies that you know were never really meant to connect and kind of weave it all into one narrative. And they did a better job of this than I expected them to, but it does mean that there are a lot of moving parts here, and the plot can get convoluted with lengthy scenes devoted to the characters just explaining what the hell is going on and how it all ties together with stuff that happened years or even decades ago. You feel this mostly in the first act, which is a bit slow because they're hitting you with a ton of information, not just about Dead Reckoning, but about the previous 6 films as well. They're referencing backstories, old plot points that go all the way back to the original movie, old characters you haven't thought about in years who make surprise returns turns and play important roles here, and it's really impressive that they even pull this off as well as they do. But it's a lot. I think it'll feel rewarding for fans of the franchise, but if you've missed a couple of the films, there will be times when you're thinking, wait, what is that? Who is that person? When did this happen? What are they talking about? It is very continuity heavy, and that can be a double-edged sword sometimes. So I think a binge of the entire series before you see this film could be really helpful. Something else to keep in mind is that despite the new title, this is still Dead Reckoning Part 2, and that could end up hurting it because Dead Reckoning Part 1 kind of underperformed, which is a damn shame, by the way. That movie is so f***ing good. But because it underperformed, there were probably some changes made to this one. You can definitely tell there was some rejiggering going on in the editing bay, but more broadly, in Dead Reckoning, you kind of got the sense that this wasn't the typical Mission Impossible film. Something was different. There was this looming feeling that something really bad was on the horizon, and Final Reckoning picks up right where that film left off. So as hard as it is to believe, the stakes and the danger are higher than they've ever been, and the movie doesn't shy away from that. So it's less focused on being a fun, popcorn, thrill ride adventure flick and more focused on creating white-knuckle tension and suspense and dread that never, ever lets up. And they go to some dark places to sell that. They're not screwing around with this one. If you've gotten attached to these characters, you may get misty-eyed a few times. And that's not a complaint by any means. That's the kind of stuff you expect in a finale. I'm just saying, get ready for more emotional gut punches than you're used to with this series. Having said all that, this movie is so busy and has so many balls in the air with so many stories it's trying to wrap up and characters it's tying together that some things do get lost in the shuffle. For instance, there's a character the team encounters early on in the film, and then all of a sudden he's just on the team like he's always been there. I don't think we ever even learn this guy's name, but he joins the team for some reason, and for the whole movie I kept wondering why. Was I supposed to know who he was? Was he a character from a previous film I didn't remember? I don't know. If there was a scene where they recruited him into the IMF and he joined the team officially, it wasn't in the movie. One minute they're meeting him, and the next he's part of the team and nobody says a word about it, which is very strange, because once they've got him, he doesn't really do anything. The story has no use for him at all. He's just there to be an extra body in a few action scenes. For as much screen time as he gets, the character is weirdly pointless. Frankly, I don't know why the hell he was even in the movie. Also, and this was in the trailer so it's not a spoiler, Pom Clementief's character comes back and she's on the team now too. And considering they were fighting tooth and nail trying to kill each other in the last movie, this happens so quickly and with so little made of it, it's downright bizarre. In the span of like one scene, she's integrated into the team and there's no tension there. She follows orders, gets along with everybody. They're a well-oiled machine like they've been working with her for years. Even the reason she joined the team doesn't really amount to anything. It felt like there was a story that should have been there with this character that the film just completely passed on. Maybe because the plot was trying to do so many other things that there wasn't time for her, but it's really weird how quickly she just fades into the crowd. And there was one specific moment in the climax where I'm pretty sure somebody screwed up. Minor spoilers here, but it involves a certain character who's supposed to not have a parachute, and them not having a parachute is an important point. It's even stated by another character that they don't have one. But then a moment later, this character magically has not one, but two parachutes. But how? You just told us they didn't have a parachute and then suddenly they have two? Where'd the parachutes come from? What the f? There must have been an editing gaffe of some kind here. Considering the obvious re-edits the film went through, maybe that shouldn't be surprising, but that's really uncharacteristic for this team. They're usually pretty on the spot with details like that. And my final nitpick, since we're following up Dead Reckoning, that evil AI, the entity, is still a thing, and I thought it was more compelling last time. It felt more unique before. I won't go into specifics, but the entity gets really close to becoming just a full-blown Skynet ripoff in this one. They're definitely towing that line, and they don't go over it, but the similarities are there, and you will notice them. If Chris McQuarrie happened to say that he was binging the Terminator series while writing the script, it wouldn't surprise me. One thing they use to try to differentiate it is this weird subplot about people being fanatically devoted to the entity like they're in some kind of religious cult or something, but it comes off as kind of hokey and doesn't really amount to much. The movie could have done without that. Generally, the threat of the entity didn't didn't really land like I was hoping it would after they built it up so much in Dead Reckoning, and that kinda sucks. So, overall, the Final Reckoning reaches some amazing highs, and it also has some issues that you can kinda pick at. So it's not the absolute best of the Mission Impossible series, but when it's good, it's damn good. This is still top-tier action filmmaking we're talking about here. The stuff they were able to pull off is impressive as hell. I mean, the biplane and submarine sequences, Jesus Christ, it just doesn't get better than that. And considering the long list of things this film was trying to accomplish, and the number of things on that list that it knocked out of the park, I'm really not that bothered if it whiffed on a couple of them. At the end of the day, it's still a really fun time at the movies. As a potential finale to Mission Impossible that had the crazy difficult task of being a capper to the entire 8-film series, The Final Reckoning is a little bit clunky in the story department, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And when it comes to the big flashy stuff people expect from this franchise, that's when it really shines. I was satisfied with it, and for God's sake, you guys, see this movie in a theater. Don't wait to stream it. This is one of those films that deserves to be seen on the big screen. Tom Cruise is killing himself to keep the movie-going experience alive, and he can't do that forever. Hell, the man's been running his ass off since 1996, and that shit gets harder as you get older. With how much he keeps pushing the envelope, I'm a little afraid that one day he really will die making one of these things. So, while he's still here, we should appreciate him for bringing us kick-ass movies like the Mission Impossible series. Good on you, Tommy C. Let's wrap this thing up. Thanks so much for watching. While you're here, ding that bell icon and follow all of my social media so you can always be notified when I upload new stuff. The links are down there. And this channel is a one-man operation. I do all this stuff myself, so help me out by smashing that like button, leaving a comment, sharing the video, subscribing if you haven't already, and making sure you're still subscribed, because what really deserves to self-destruct in 5 seconds is the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now. I'll be back with more soon. Take care, stay tuned. I'll see you next time.